So I'm going to call the meeting of the School Planning Committee to order. First item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes from January 15th of 2020.
So moved.
I have a second. Do you have a second?
I wasn't here, but I guess I'll second.
All those in favor? So,
There we go.
Jay,
Theoretically, that's a,
in favor?
I was going to say theoretically, that's a vote. Oops, gotta turn this down.
With that having been said, so just as a reminder, there's a lot to get through tonight in terms of updates from all of the various user groups. So turning it over and away you go. And if there were folks who were at those user group meetings, you know, I know Caroline went to some, I'm sure Ann and Alicia have been to some.
That'll be you and me, I'm
Feel
sure.
free to chime in
You'll be talking too,
with
right?
your
Maybe
updates
at some
from
point.
those user groups. So,
We'll see how it's going.
central admin.
See if I start coughing. Okay, so here's our agenda. We already kind of talked about that. And yes, if anybody who was at any of these meetings, feel free to chime in, because I'm going to go pretty high level on them. I'm not going to dive into the detail.
Except if it requires, except if you're recommending changes that we need to vote on.
Yes. So, starting with central admin, we met on January 28th, and really there were just a couple of little shifts in locations of offices. We moved conference room location to the outboard there. You see where it's going to be hard with the, I guess I could kind of Mr. Microphone this, or the whole thing.
Whatever you want.
Well, does my pointer show up there? Yeah. So we moved the conference room outboard there, and that was an effort to kind of have it so it opened up more into the space. Move the administrative assistant spaces outside the superintendent and assistant superintendent offices, which is that back-to-back desk location further down on the drawings. Reconfigured the sped suite and added a guest toilet, which was one of the requests. So we did work that in. It's right at the top. There's 3 little toilets in a row, 2 singles for the staff, and then 1 guest toilet. And then we worked on the break room layout a little bit and confirmed the appliances and the layout of the break room. So really just minor stuff. I think we're kind of settled now on this space, and we're good to move forward. So.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I'm assuming that the main access to that space is from the vestibule at the top. That
Yep.
goes, you know, in other words, the doors that go into the school, for the most part, right?
The
main access
to this is right here.
Dan, I think the mic can pick you up if you stand there.
You're
I think you're fine.
Okay, so the main access to the space is still here. There's only an emergency access out of the school here from that wing, and they can get out that way. And these doors are all, would be locked off. Anybody getting into this corridor is not really going to be able to go anywhere. They're going to kind of be trapped in this box. That's kind of the logical place to go. We didn't really want to add yet another, we talked about adding another set of doors there, but in the end, we just felt like it wasn't really necessary. There's that main one. This is that little administrative area outside the 2 assistant superintendent office, conference, and break room layout, and that added restroom for guests.
And, okay, nope.
Nope, we all set on that space? Okay. Then we talked, the same day, a little bit later, we talked about school administration. Really here, we flipped the conference room location with a duplicating room to get access directly off the corridor, and rotated the nurses' suite, which was something we talked about, to allow for an exterior window. If you remember in the earlier scheme, that space did not have an exterior window, which is kind of was a little bit of a flaw in that space because they really kind of need one that's an occupied space all day long. So we were able to work that into it. So they are now, we got this window down here. They're now here, and then this space, and that's this space, and this space rotated. So we think that flows a little bit better. Minor changes to that part of the plan. Any questions about that area?
You know, so anyone who you would like to have see this has seen this or
All the
discussed it.
administrators were there and participated.
So on February 5th, we met about the exterior, and there's actually a whole section of slides about this coming up later in here. This is like a little bit of a teaser. I brought the physical materials that Dawn left me, which I'm going to assume the bag that she left me is the one with all the materials that we actually selected. I got this orange thing in the mail, which she told me to bring here. So when we get there, we'll look at those elevations. Really, she brought physical samples and looked at different palettes for the building. And ultimately, I believe option 1, which was the one that we kind of originally proposed, is the one that was settled on, or is the one that's being suggested. So we'll get to that. Mhm.
Okay.
There's like a whole series of slides later on for that. And we actually updated the
And that
the
was-
watercolor as well.
And that was the option 1, those were the costs that we carried.
Those are the costs that were carried in the estimate. Yep.
And you updated what as well?
We were actually one of our people was actually able to update that watercolor and move.
Oh, the watercolor,
Yeah.
oh, right, yes. Sorry. I missed the exterior meeting, so I wasn't really sure what you were talking about. I got it now, thank you.
And so at any point along the way, I'm just thinking of the question that I just asked, I'm assuming that all of what you are showing to us is all within what we originally have submitted for our schematic design budget.
Mhm.
And I know that these numbers are getting further refined
Yep.
now, but they're still within.
They're all the things that we selected for the schematic design estimate. As the drawings get more detail, people look at them and say, well, I didn't really understand or realize you were doing that. That's usually what happens, and then unfortunately that always increases the cost, which is what the design contingency is meant to absorb.
But if there's any cost increase, you'll work that into your conversation for this group, right?
Yes.
You won't be
Yeah,
able to know
that's that whole process is, we'll come back with the estimate, we'll tell you where we're at, and we'll recommend value engineering if we need to. Make sure they're both reconciled together so that the number is as close to the number that we think that we're going to see on bid day, at least with the drawings we have today. And hopefully we'll be on budget, or be where we want to be.
We will be.
Or under.
Well, we will be on budget, but I hope that we're going to be where we want to be. Same day, we met with EMS, fire, and police. And really that was about looking at the updated landscaping plans. Ashley Inocelli, our landscape architect, brought back the plans from the last meeting and kind of showed, what she had heard, and got clarification, and also, more discussion about, now that these are getting more developed, more discussion about that in landscape and how the traffic was going to work. And there really weren't a lot of new things, except I think there's still a lot of questions in people's mind about how that pass-through road is going to work, going between Lothrop and Columbus, that new connection, and when it's going to be closed, when it's going to be open. And we're not really, I think we've said a few times that we're not really stating how it should be used. It should be put in, and then you should live with it, decide, and over time decide how it works best for the community and works best for campus operations, not necessarily saying it must be this turn or that turn, because there was a lot of concern about the traffic pattern and how that would work. And I don't think, we're not trying to lock anybody down with that.
But we could probably make recommendations.
We can make a recommendation, and I think Vinod, our traffic engineer, has made a recommendation, but that recommendation was, people were still felt maybe, it's really a concern about what happens on Lothrop once that's open in front of the fire department and police, that building. How does that look? And I think when nothing's not here, you don't really know how it looks until it's there.
And the traffic engineer noted that he could follow up after the school was open. It's not part of the scope of the project, but he could follow up after and make further recommendations based on the real-time use of the building once it is open.
Yep. Yeah, and we talked a little bit about,
Carolyn.
I just think I probably missed this because we have lockdown rooms. I don't remember discussion about that. So which rooms are locked down?
We did, we talked about there being,
Talked about how they probably run the rest of the year.
yeah, those rooms are where like basically the security brain of the school will be. So when and if there's, God forbid, if there's an emergency, there's a room in the building where the cameras are all, you can open a closet and the cameras are there, all the monitors are there, panic buttons there. It's basically like a kind of a center of operations. And then it was asked if we could kind of have the same thing at central admin. So that's why it's rooms. Like, can we have the same kind of setup? Well, not necessarily duplicative.
Because the one in Central is for the district.
Yep.
The one in the school is
For the
literally
school.
For the school.
But that's why it's lockdown rooms, because it's both.
Yeah, I just lived the term lockdown and had never heard it before, and I.
Caroline has visceral reactions to lockdown.
Well, we're gonna basically that room's gonna be hardened. Like it'll be a hardened room. It'll have concrete masonry unit walls, and it'll be more difficult to get into if you're trying to. Yeah. So, are there any other questions about this?
It's where admin goes instead of fleeing. We stay and continue working, so we try to keep us working as long as possible with reinforced walls.
Also noting that my staff is now putting the disclaimer on here that the updated plans noting change. It's ending up on it. She
Can you just go
put
back
that
to
on there.
The helicopter landing zone?
The helicopter, yeah, there's you have that now. It lands on basically the septic area in that field, and I
Is that
think.
not possible in the new one?
I think that's probably what we'll suggest for the new one, because we did talk about where that might go and how much space. I think he said 100 by 100 was the requirement for that, of open space for that to land there.
I
And
saw that field on the left, which is over the leaching field,
Yep.
expanded in the last drawing.
Mhm.
It's bigger.
Yep.
Is that the one you're talking about for this?
No, that would be the one that's on. Is the
You
one
have
that's the.
drawings?
No, I don't think I have a site plan. That's the longer field.
Yeah.
That's between the.
Multi-purpose.
The multi-purpose field, yeah. Or the other location is the overlap between the baseball fields, right in the center there.
Okay.
But that all hinges also on where we ultimately find the best location mathematically for the septic system, which is new business.
Okay.
So
Okay. So it's something we have now.
Something you have now,
That we may or
they
may
want-
not be able to have?
no, they want it. It
Okay,
needs to
so it can be
it
done.
needs to be done. So
Okay.
it really is like the only flux is it
Where?
really shouldn't land on a septic field. So it's just flux is whether or not we move the septic
Okay.
field over or we leave it the same the way it is now.
I have a quick question. Just misinterpreting helicopter landing zone lighting and noting review? What is that supposed to be?
Interior helicopter landing zone lighting.
And NOTIN.
Huh.
What is that word supposed to be? Okay, just wondering.
I don't know.
Was it signage or?
There's no signage for it.
Yeah.
There's
not
no
now.
there's no signage for it.
Really.
Okay,
But anytime one lands, you always just have to go to the Easton Mass Moms page and hear about it.
well, it's Facebook.
If you're on that, if you're on that.
So, and yesterday we met about really more of an integrated design meeting, less of an MEP meeting. So it was more about going through the lead scorecard and where we are right now and where we kind of need to be, because we started that meeting not really where we really want to be. We're right at, we need to get, for silver, to get your 2% reimbursement, we need to get 50 points. 50, yep. And in order to get 50 points, to be sure you're going to get 50 points, you kind of need to have like 53, 54 points. We've been hovering around 50, 51 here for any number of reasons. The site or the lack of being able to bring the bicycle issue that we've all spoken about before. All those little things add up to not having enough points. They end up, we only have 51. Through that meeting, we got ourselves to 53, which is good.
there were a couple of things.
And what was
There's always a couple things that need to be in order to do that, but I think that both our mechanical team was here and our plumbing and electrical was on the phone, and they all felt the ones that we thought were maybe they're strong maybes
that we can
And
get them.
they don't have an implication on the budget?
No, not a huge implication on the budget. They're just things that you sometimes can or can't do, and those they felt they could do them, or we haven't, or the lead, the people who are doing our leads for us felt that they haven't seen someone do it before, or it was difficult. One of them was difficult. They thought, well, it was difficult. One of them was it demand response was one?
Demand response, yeah.
So that's a question. And then there's another one about the lighting system and getting a certain quality of lighting. And the lead expert said that they had not seen schools be able to do that, but our engineer says he has been regularly able to get that point. It's lighting quality.
And it sounds like it's tied to a lot of different factors, such as even interior finishes and
Yeah.
reflectivity.
And there was a mechanical one too. So they were things that the people put in like a maybe no, because they hadn't felt they were really either, that our engineers may or may not be able to get them, because all the schools they've worked on, they haven't seen it be an easy point to get. But these guys felt much stronger that they could get them, and they've been getting them regularly. There's always a ripcord for this too. You can purchase a number of points. So if we get to a situation where we need to make sure you can purchase up to 5 points.
What?
Yep.
How?
You-
Like literally?
Literally, like,
Like
yeah,
carbon
write a check.
credits.
You
Yeah.
can buy energy
Who are
credits.
you purchasing them from? I'm just curious.
There are organizations that work with LEED that sell energy credits, and you can
Many
get-
times when you see a
yeah,
LEED
you
gold
get
building,
LEED
they,
gold. That's how they get there.
they purchase credit.
So if you get to 57 or something, and you purchase 4 or 5 points to get yourself over the hump.
Is it really expensive?
No, we already have your quote because you're so close. So it's $14,000.
Remind me at a high level,
That's it?
what are the categories of things that they look at? What are the categories of things that we're trying to meet in order for our LEED certification?
So the major categories, and I'm going to go from memory. Site is a major category, and site is either site. I find that you either get the credits or you don't get any credits, and here we're not getting any. So you kind of see like either someone, and it's really designed for someone who's building a building in a city, because if you're building it anywhere else, suddenly all the credits are really difficult to get. You're not close enough to, the stores. You don't have a bike lane. In your case, you have all those things except the one road is 40 miles an hour and the maximum allowable mileage per hour is 25. So there's all these. It's very once you start slipping down the slope on the site, you usually don't see too many credits for that.
A sign.
Well, yeah, put a sign up, 25. We'll get the credit. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and that one ties into location and transportation, which is also pretty much all site. So that's about like the density around us, quality to transportation. So if you're near a subway and a bus, and you get credit for that. Water efficiency is basically we're getting those, not irrigating. The other one is low flow fixtures, which we are struggling with because this age group, usually you get those points when you have lots of urinals, because those are low flow. This age group doesn't have that. So we're kind of stuck where we're going to get 1 point, but usually you can kind of you can slam dunk 3.
On-off sensor?
It's really a matter, it's the gallons per minute or the liters per minute flush
Okay.
that they're counting.
So the sensors don't matter?
You can do metered ones too, ones when you push it down and it doesn't, either way.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff.
It just has to measure, it just has to a certain amount. Yeah, and so, they very much do, and yeah, and the hand dryers too.
Yeah.
They don't like those either.
Wait, hand dryer.
No, we're not, because, yeah, we did. No, just telling that scares them too, because my daughter runs around the room trying to avoid all these things every time she goes in the bathroom.
Okay.
So, energy and atmosphere is the next one. That's basically being, as energy efficient as possible. MSBA requires us to hit, I think, 30% now, better than code, which is where we are. And that gets you 12 points. And then, we think there's probably an opportunity to maybe get a couple of more points, maybe get to 35%. It goes in almost it goes like almost in 2.5% increments. So it goes to 33 and then to 35. So hopefully, I'd like to see us get to 35 if we can. Materials and resources is basically using, healthy materials in the building. There's credits here that we don't get for when you reuse an existing building, which we're not doing. So you don't get those credits. Some of these are difficult to get because the way LEED has evolved over time, they're trying to stay in front and change the industry, to force the industry to change things. So they're asking for something called an EPD, which is an environmental declaration, a product declaration. Most manufacturers are not eager to do this. So it's difficult to get the point now because you can't get the paperwork from the manufacturer because they don't have it. So it's becoming easier because more manufacturers are, a couple of years ago when this first started, it was impossible. The point you couldn't get it at all. But now we're looking at least 1 or 2 points in that category. Try to collect that information. The construction ones are usually pretty easy. All the contractors have been doing that for years. That's also in the materials and resources. Indoor environmental quality is one we're really trying to hit on here too. We're getting most of the points. That's really the materials, the air quality in the building, interior lighting, thermal comfort, all those different things that make the building a wonderful place to be. Daylighting, we're not getting, which is an interesting one. We're not. Most people don't. The way they measure the daylighting makes it very, very, very difficult to get daylighting credit. So, and especially in a school. So it's really what they're aiming at is they're almost looking at like an office building where you have all these windows along the sides and you're sitting at your desk and there's always daylight on every single space. In schools, you don't really necessarily, the daylight's not like that. So in a classroom, it might be this really wonderful daylight, but you'll score poorly because in the back of the room or it just doesn't hit the same number that they're wanting you to hit. So it doesn't correlate well to the building type.
When I think about the design of that,
Yep. It's always surprising. You can't get them. You just can't get the credit.
So LEED certification is universal, it's not.
It's somewhat tailored, but somewhat not. So there are specific. It is LEED for schools, but they don't change every single credit. They actually they adapt some. So this is one that is not adapted. This is a straight up, and it probably should be because the building type is so different. Acoustical performance is another one to mention that we're not getting. There's a baseline acoustical performance we are getting. The enhanced acoustical performance is costly, and it is also, I think, probably a maintenance headache over the long term. With the things that you need to do to seal the doors and seal the building up, it's just, it's very hard. Yep. So, and then there's innovation credits. Those are ones that we basically come up with a good idea and put it forth to them. And there's a number of those that are well-known innovation credits that are buried in their website that you can look up and see what other people have done. And if you do the same thing, you can generally get that credit. You can exceed one of the credits. You can go after something and then just do that much better, like 10, 15, 20% better to get an innovation credit. Building as a teaching tool is generally an innovation credit, which we're going to go after. That's green education. There's a couple others. Low mercury lighting is that's one we stole off their website. Pilot certification, design with nature, we're going to try to get that one too. So one of the things our team is trying to do is bring in, there's another thing, beyond LEED, there's something called WELL, and that really focuses on health of a building, health and being healthy in a building, and we're bringing some of those things in to grab innovation credits. Regional priority credits, we're going to get 3 of the 4. Those are things that USGBC, the local chapter, has decided are important to this area. So they do it by zip code. They basically have a sheet of zip codes and they tell you what are the important things per each area. And we've got 3 of the 4. The one we're not getting is outdoor water use reduction, because we don't have any outdoor water use to reduce.
we're not using any, are we?
We can't get a point because we don't have anything to reduce.
Thanks.
So we're going to keep on this because we really want to try to get you. I mean, ideally, I'd like to see us get closer to gold, but we definitely need to be over 51.
Any other thoughts from others who were at that meeting? Anything else?
I was at
you
that
wanna
meeting.
touch on? Ally,
I'm still a little gun shy on the innovation. If there's an outsider, that's the one I think is possibly the weakest. Because so far, I haven't personally seen a lot of innovation. There's a former DOE grant reviewer be a little weird on the 6 points.
I think it's 3, isn't it 3?
No, 6.
points.
It's 6? Oh, yeah, we're going after all of them. Well, 5, because lead accredited
It
professionals.
sounded pretty substantial.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
But it sounds like you've got a lot of options in innovation. I mean, for each category,
Mhm.
there are like lots of different things you could do here.
There are, and you really don't have to kind of choose it until you get to the point where you're later on in CDs when we're designing it, make sure that it really gets into the project. Like right now, these are the ideas, these are the things that we think we're going to do.
Is this just about the physical structure of the building, or outside?
Some things are, some things are
Like
programmed, some things are out. Yep.
Sensory garden,
Mhm.
or the courtyard or something?
One of them is the garden. One of them is the outside space. One of them is built, and one of them is an educational program piece. So they vary, and they vary with who's going to take that. That would go into the education one. Mhm. Mhm.
What
But
about the composting in the kitchen?
Possibly. I mean, we rely on that consultant because they've brought so many projects through that they can say like, oh, that'll likely be successful, or if you want that to be successful, you need to do the following.
Add this component.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, if I remember correctly, there was a lady, Robin
Mm-hmm.
Buchanan from Green Schools.
Mhm.
She had talked to, I think, you and some other people.
Mhm. Work hard.
So she's going to be working with the team, I guess.
Yeah, we're thrilled.
So you're gonna, because I know Alice here, I know that some of your consultants are gonna be following up with people who have attended those meetings to continue to
Mhm.
work on.
Yeah, we're definitely going to follow up with her. I mean, that's great. So let's go into the exterior. So I think Dawn was alone presenting this to everybody, and one of the things I could go back to is just the quality of exterior materials and some things that we look at when we're designing a building. These are the 4 basic things that we're always looking for: is durability, cost, maintenance, and life cycle of the components. So early on, we had always had this idea of bringing the kind of the field stone look into the base of the building at a kind of a low-ish wall. It's an expensive material, but it lasts a long, long time, and it's very, very durable. So we're still going to suggest that material. I think that's part of option 1. That was in the SD estimate as a band about 2 feet or so off the ground. That was always there. So it's no change there. It's just basically staying in the project. And how we actually, I think that the little circle there is probably not super representative of exactly what it would look like, because that's kind of cobbly. I think it'll be less than that. It'll be more uniform than that. But that's the material. That's the idea. The one below here.
We were thinking about almost would be like a wall that kids could like
Sit on, interact with. The one below is that's actually one of our projects where we did use stones, Mount Braylock out in Williamstown, and that stone's a Goshen Stone, which is native to the area. So it's Goshen. There's 2 different kinds. One side of the mountain that doesn't have any rust in it, and the other side it does. So there was a whole discussion. It has so the rock actually has a reddish kind of, it kind of has that feel to it. And there was a lot of discussion about that's the non-reddish, which one we were going to use. But I would probably try to go the same way here. Try to find something that's more local and more, appropriate to what's here. For facade materials, looking again for something that's like low maintenance, durable, high performance, long lifespan. We had carried phenolic panels, which are basically, I guess the only way to really, like you've all seen this, is bathroom partition. That is a phenolic panel. So when you see those heavy duty through color bathroom partitions, that's what this material is. And they put a finish on the outside of it, they bake a finish onto it, and they put a coating on it, and that becomes
Is that this light colored piece?
that is that light colored piece, yeah. It's that piece of wood there. Did it forward itself? It did. So that's that piece there.
The light or the dark?
Those attached, I'm going to pass them around.
Yeah, we're passing these. They're a little heavy.
Yeah, they were heavy last time.
This-
It's
Dawn
that,
likes
just
to,
hold it up.
well, she always make some money. So,
Oh, that one.
that's that one.
But
And you
we're not-
can get them, it doesn't need to be a wood grain.
No, it doesn't, yeah.
Solid color, it can be a wood grain.
Oh, so they didn't pick those kinds of things, like the color?
They did.
Oh,
They
they
did,
did.
They did.
Oh,
So
what is
not.
it?
We're getting there.
This color?
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It might be. It might be. Yeah, it is. That's the color.
So is this?
It was, it might not be the final color, we still would obviously need to bid it out, and they could come back, they gotta put 3.
Well, if we don't like it, then we can now say we don't like it. That's it.
Oh, okay. Look.
There's pictures coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
This is like a meaty. This is also a relatively costly material for a facade. It's not inexpensive, but highly durable, and performs well. This is one of this side is one of our projects that has it. It's Essex Technical High School. Those joints on that are actually scored into the panel. They're not through cut, so it's a little less expensive to do it that way because you can utilize bigger pieces and save some money. The only thing with that is there's, and I doubt they've ever done this, but if you were so inclined, after every couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years, you could go and oil the joints to make them then pop out again, but because they probably will fade over time. But something that you would be so inclined to do if you wanted to. You don't have to. It doesn't affect the material.
How is the material fastened to the wall? Is it glued?
There's a bunch of different ways it's fastened to the wall. You can face screw it in. So that building actually has screws that are color matched to it, and it's screwed into the girt system behind it. You can also, it's more expensive, but you can do a kind of a clip system where they hung on the building, and therefore it has no, you don't see any of the. But if you, in this picture, you can't really even see the fasteners at all. So we would probably go towards that because that's a less expensive way to do it and get the same look and the same durability from the material, rather than spending the money on the hidden girt system. But it can be done either way.
I'm sure that question will come up for DPW on
Mhm.
how they would prefer to change the panels. which-
Screws on the outside, I bet you want.
Gonna bet Bubba that's- wants, Bubba gets.
Mm-hmm. Bubba wants, Bubba gets. Screws on the outside.
Concealed fasteners tend to be a progressive system, so you can't just pop that one panel.
Mm-hmm. You got to go start somewhere and work your way over to it.
Sold.
Much easier.
They look fine. It looks fine. You can't even tell. And then we interspersed here, we have fiber cement panels, which I think is that tan thing. I guess it's this guy. Yep. I think that's the color too. Fiber cement panels are still a durable, long-lasting material. They're less expensive than the Trespa, not wildly so, but a little less expensive. And usually we go with a through color one and the same exact kind of mounting as the other. So usually the whole girt system goes up and then all these panels get screwed onto it. So there's not like a mix match going on. They're all the same installation.
You'll see as it's passed around, it's very, very different from the fiber cement systems you'd see in
Mhm.
the residential. So it's a lot more durable.
Doesn't stain.
I have not heard that happening.
Have you used,
We've used it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's been around for a long time. The most common thing for, at least on a home, like Hardy makes a lot of these things. So if you have, they have a whole residential, but they also have a commercial division, and they make fiber cement panels for commercial buildings. That's probably not a Hardy panel, though. You have to look at the back. It's probably Sembrit.
There we go.
There you go. So this is the one that was this option 1, which is the one that we were settled on. Let me pass that around so we can look at it a little closer. Or that's the one that was suggested and the one that everybody felt was the one they liked. Now the bright orange thing,
Yeah, I've been waiting for that.
that's this.
Yeah, what is that?
What is it?
That is,
Window?
yep.
Oh.
That is a box around the window.
I think it's only on the,
And there's only a few of them here and there. They may all be one color, they may not be, but they're meant to evoke a little bit of playfulness on the exterior. So, and the orange one is this guy.
So
It's only on the return.
So it's just a frame, and it's a frame around the window, and it returns to the window so that you would, you can see it on the
I was
elevation.
just thinking the same thing, but I think the way she explained it was
Yeah.
only on the returns, on the panels. But maybe not.
And that actually may go into the building too, so the kids can sit on that inside.
Okay.
There you go. But they're not, those are not like everywhere,
Not all.
like they're just, no.
The ones that are, they're all gonna be orange, or they're gonna be?
No, they,
variety
well,
of colors?
that's not, I'm not the guy to answer that, to make that.
Proposing it to you.
I'm ready to tire.
Exactly.
I said that, and I got this kind of like, well, why wouldn't they be looked? But so I don't know what Dawn would suggest. I would suggest they're different colors, just because I think if it's something playful, then and there's only one around, there's only like a couple, you only got 8 or 9 of them in the whole place, and maybe they should be different colors. That's my, but
Yeah, that's a bit bright, but
This is like traffic cone
mm-hmm.
orange. Well, like a burnt orange might be.
Perkins Eastman orange.
Kind of crazy. Burnt orange. Maybe whatever the group. Remember these ones?
So here you can kind of see the bottom of the building is that
yeah.
what's the stone band, and then we've got this kind of this first band here, which is the trespa, and that's lined up either scored or lined in something. It's kind of a horizontal patterning, and then this is the canopy, and then up on the second floor, just kind of pieces of this phenolic panel, and a lot more feel to the fiber cement, and again, kind of for the this again with the trespa, and then up here probably with the size of that, I'm guessing that's a metal panel system.
Get that.
Do you plan to take the stone all the way around the whole building?
Yes. Yep. All the way around.
Is that something if you had to cut a couple of dollars on somewhere that you could reduce that?
It's pretty short
You know,
now.
at least in the areas that are not really visible to the public?
You could, but you have to bring something down. And the issue with that is that whatever you bring down needs to be pretty durable at that ground level, because you're going to have snow and all kinds of stuff piled up against it. So it would likely become a masonry product of some type. And then the question, you're not really talking about it's a material cost, not necessarily installation cost. It's the same guy installing both things.
Yep.
So I think you could play with the way the stone is, and maybe, again, this may not be the greatest image of that, because this might be very difficult to install, but there's not necessarily other stone sizes, shapes that can be easier to install. That cost is going to vary. It's going to be, depending on what that actually finally looks like.
There are other areas where we would look at a cost most likely.
There are other,
Not
yeah,
on
this is
the
only
base,
2 feet tall, so I think if we were sitting right now and saying this was not this level of kids, and this thing was 6 feet tall, then absolutely, we would say, let's cut 3 feet out of that. But it's 2 feet tall, so it's kind of so low that,
Yeah, it's on our VM log, was on actually back at schematic design, and the savings value was so low that we moved forward with still in the scope, but
Yeah.
it'll stay on the log, so we'll carry it forward as we move through design.
Thanks.
I think this piece here, just so we can kind of go with all the things, this guy here is the underside of the canopy. So it's a rulon on the underside of those canopies that, so this is that kind of, this actually looks really nice when it's installed, but it's a, polyvinyl product that looks like wood.
And so the canopy that are over the porches,
Mhm.
right? So, or any canopy around the whole, yeah.
And that's,
That's what that is. That's what that is. This is it.
Yeah.
And that's real, so this is the real beam, and that's that. So it's,
so it's the mix of the light and dark wood.
so you really can't even, when you're walking, you really can't even tell that.
Light and then dark on the panels. Yeah.
And this is very similar to the
It's only at the
look
front.
we're looking
Just
for
beyond
these
that.
canopies, that kind of beam
I don't think he has
and
the canopies.
inset look.
Dan, is that at the entry canopies too, or just the outdoor classroom canopies?
Right now, I think it's just at the outdoor classroom canopies, but
So, and there's something different over the entrance camper.
there may be the same, there may be that, but it may not have the same wood beam kind of look. It may be this is there too, but it may not have the same structure that those guys will have.
make a difference between the two of them.
Yeah. Same language, different design.
Yep.
Oh, and we updated the perspective so that you could kind of see what it would look.
Where's the balcony?
That's coming up.
Oh,
Good catch.
sorry.
It's there,
Okay,
but it's not where it was.
okay.
So, it's still there.
It's in the rendering.
Yeah, it's yeah, but that's not where it was. Yeah, it's moved. Yeah, it's on the side now.
It's tough to see on the projections. We're behind the
Mhm.
flagpole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Behind the flagpole?
Yep.
Kind of?
Yeah.
To the right.
Yeah, it's now being proposed right here.
Whereas before it was at the front.
Before it was here,
Okay.
but I'll show you the plan, but we're thinking this is a better spot.
And access is still,
Through the library, same as it was before. Yep. Oh, detailed design update. So here we go. So there's the first one, Discovery Terrace location.
Just because I saw such high traffic.
So, let me see if this is the older plan. So this is the DD floor plan. This is really just showing the things we already kind of zoomed in on, which is the central admin changes and the admin changes. So we kind of already went over those in a larger format. This is showing what we're now grappling with the upstairs. So the Discovery Terrace used to be here. And one of the issues with that is an egressing. Is an egress issue getting out of this space. It's almost too far from the outer edge of the Discovery Terrace to the exit, to the place where you have two means of egress, which is too far. So in order to keep the element and try to weave it in a little bit differently into the space, because we're still kind of playing with how this is all laid out. This is where we're now saying we think that the Discovery Terrace should be. With the makerspace, it's very, very.
Is that the same size?
They're all this. It is the same size as it was before. It wasn't the entire thing before.
it wasn't that entire.
What does that say?
Trying to read
Yeah, I'm trying to read that.
That's Makerspace.
Okay, Makerspace is up on top, and then Media Center below. That's right.
Yep.
And then the classroom is here too.
So the
here's that
dimensions of
professional
the
development, makerspace, and they're all the same square footages. And then the media center. And we felt this would have, the media center here would have better visual access to everything. This room is something I think we want to revisit and discuss more. Is it kind of feels like it's a box inside a room. It's that professional development room. And we're kind of wondering if that maybe there's a conversation that we can have about what this is really going to do and how we might be able to open this space up. Is that going to be something that we can do? Or do we have to have that room as a closed object?
Is there a way to?
Yes.
Close it?
Yes.
But leave it up, like,
Mhm.
have it open but close it if necessary?
Mhm. Yep.
Is that a possibility?
Yep, so you could make that wall either kind of glass panel wall or some kind of operable wall. They're like laughing because I'm out of money. Don't say animal, I didn't say animal, I didn't say animal, I didn't
Tell
say
us
it, I
when
didn't say it.
You thought it.
I did, I thought it, but I didn't call it. There are ways to do this.
Okay.
One of the other ideas we had was to kind of reconfigure this so that the makerspace could actually kind of open up into the Discovery Terrace. And could you come up, instead of coming, one of the things we kind of talked about, you come up to the top of this ramp, and there was some look like, well, wouldn't it be nice to look into the media center? But would it be just as nice to look through the makerspace and onto the Discovery Terrace as looking into the media? Does it have to have a door there, or could I just turn and go into the door? But I have this like basically sheet of glass, look through the makerspace, another sheet of glass, and see kids playing outside. So, and have that wall be open too, so that this whole piece is actually, we're starting to kind of think about that. Could that be open too? So that you could open that up and basically use that Discovery Terrace as part of the makerspace.
So you're really still working on the
We're
whole
really still,
design of
we're
that.
struggling with it because this to us is difficult because it's a room inside a room, and
we're wondering if that room is gonna, like, what's the use of that room? Is that gonna just be a room that doesn't get used that much? I mean, I know, because I've discussed a little bit what the use is, but we're trying to figure out how that fits in. And whether or not, is there another way to make this fit in and make it part of the space and make it useful on a day-to-day basis for everybody, but still do the things it needs to do to make it useful for the program? But that was one of the ideas, is get rid of this door, come up here and actually see through the makerspace, through there, and just see directly out. Like, is that something you want us to look at? Like, what does that feel like versus going up and seeing like a circuit desk, which is what we were doing before? I think it's nicer to see, personally, the makerspace, that activity, and then the outside. I think that's kind of a.
And the Discovery Terrace,
Mhm.
moved to its still new location, is still the same dimension.
It's still the same square footage.
Okay.
Just the same size, it's just a different,
Okay.
it's not the same, like, it's not as, it's more rectangle, but
Right,
not the
it's
same.
not
Yeah.
as deep.
It's not as deep.
It's not as deep.
Since there's a code requirement on the, a photovoltaic utility room, you mentioned that you're gonna put it somewhere on the second floor. Have you figured out where you're gonna put that?
No. We don't know. I would imagine it's gonna end up in the mechanics space. And that's, I think, what we talked about yesterday, was somehow it works its way into that space, which is the main mechanical. But there's a whole, there's another conversation with whoever that provider might ultimately be, as to what they're providing, and then what their requirements are for that equipment. Because I guess somebody mentioned that some of those batteries and some of that equipment needs to be outside versus inside, so, but there's space in this building for that. Most of the equipment that goes in these mechanical rooms is a lot smaller than it used to be.
Yeah, the batteries will be non-hydrogen generated and
So
located inside.
There's room for that.
Right, thank you.
So I think we're probably gonna bring back like another iteration of that kind of shows like what other ideas might be, and that wall being convertible so that you can actually use that space. But as far as tonight, the Discovery Terrace location is the one that we're looking for a thumbs up on.
I like the idea of the makerspace leading out to the Discovery. It makes the most sense to me.
In that
just-
sight line.
I think it's gonna be cool.
Educationally, that you could make that Discovery
Right there.
Terrace part of the
Jacobs in,
makerspace.
Mhm.
Bedford.
Right, as an extension of it.
Yep. Yep.
And that professional development room, to me, obviously is more of an adult space. I wonder if that could be, like in the far corner as opposed to like in the, right at the front.
We had thought about, like, could you play with this area a little bit, move this down here to here, have the wall be completely open to there, and then have the makerspace kind of be, right outside the professional development, so it's a professional development, operable wall, makerspace, so that makerspace could spill into that professional development or out if you wanted it to.
Is it do you foresee a problem if the professional development space is open? Because that would most likely be used when students aren't there, right? Or am I misreading the purpose? Yeah, that's.
I'm not sure, but this is our professional development room here,
Yeah,
and we often have teachers here during the day.
right.
So to me, if it's open, kids would still be using the media center. That might be distracting to
But this
both
will still
adults
be a
and
PD
children.
room. So we don't necessarily, if
Yeah,
you want to
you
leave that open,
you leave the
still
dish,
use
you
this
leave
as
the
a
thing closed
district.
if you don't want it.
Right?
It just seemed like there was an opportunity there
Yeah.
for this space to become part, like, to have a
I
synergy with the
agree, I
makerspace.
agree.
In the time that you might want to do that, you might want to have someone doing a messy thing in the makerspace, but have a class going on in there. You might
Right.
want to use that room to support it.
Yeah.
And then
So
that
not
also leaves-
necessarily professional development room, it's class, it's
How about
class.
classroom, like an adjunct?
Kids, and I also see it as an adult space in
Mhm.
terms of maybe teachers meeting there impromptu or doing some of their planning and work in there as the library or media center as a resource for them. I'm just thinking if kids and adults are in at the same time, you don't want kids distracted by adults, their teachers and their meeting. But I like the idea of the flexible space that they either could use it.
Yeah, if we're able to wedge it down here and do that, that also leaves the media center like
Wide open.
wide open.
Yeah.
Like, so when you walk up, when you enter it, you have this vista out the front of the building, which now you kind of don't have. It's kind of
Right.
hidden, so it's chopped up.
Yeah.
So if you did that, you would have this whole square space, then we could put the desk could be right at the entrance or wherever, and you'd have this basically wide open media center. So it kind of solved a bunch of different things.
So you're gonna continue to work on that.
Yep.
You'll come back to
Yep,
us.
we are. Because I don't think any of us in the office are sold on it.
All about what DD is about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what you're asking us to approve tonight are the changes in the
Central admin, main admin, central admin includes the main sped
Yeah.
and the Discovery Terrace.
Anything
that's-
else that you need to go over with us?
Those, I think, are the 4 that were on the update list. Yep.
The sped suite adjustment is sent by central office.
No.
No,
What
that
was
was
the
the
spec-
switch of the 2 rooms. Right?
Mhm.
Foundations and, remember the switch of the 2 spaces that special ed was asking? It was in conjunction with the custodial and nurse
Mhm.
spaces.
Okay.
That was sort of a
Mhm.
package.
So
I think that's
go
shown
back
here, too.
to your list. There
I
were
thought we
4.
wrote-
I
we
think
did
there was
that
4
last
on your list.
There.
There they are. So Discovery Terrace, we just talked about. Central admin, we showed earlier.
Yeah.
Main admin layout, we talked about. The sped suite is that, and I think that's shown here.
Sped suite, you're talking about the dark
I think
purples.
it's the purples are the
right?
sped suites.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to say it's this.
Because, and that was,
I want to say it's this one.
that was based on a recommendation from Desi, correct?
Because they
And,
were,
with custodial also preferring to have their stuff relocated.
Yep.
Yep.
This was reconfigured too. Everything's the same area.
So flip to the one, and I'm going to make a motion so that we can.
This other way. Oh, other way.
Go to the
Sorry.
4, yeah, just so.
There you go.
So I'd like to have a motion to approve the design changes that we have reviewed tonight, which include, I'm going to do it as one motion, the Discovery Terrace location, the central admin layout, and the updated main admin layout, and the sped suite adjustments. All those in favor?
All right, project schedule.
Did we talk, have we talked about the butters focus group?
No, we didn't.
It's on, probably
It's
on
on the
committee.
agenda, oh, it's on the project.
Is it later on in yours?
There's a community outreach slide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of didn't include it in mine because
Okay, I'm
It
just-
really
I'm
wasn't-
just
it's not
looking to make
necessarily
sure we
focused.
followed everything in there, because
Yep.
it was under the detailed design update, so we'll get to it.
Under community outreach.
All right, schedule will be quick. Schedule summary, we are design bid build. Design through December 22nd, then we have about 2 months of bidding, and then we go into construction. We'll talk about the construction timeline more when we get the DD estimates back, because we want to understand what the costs are for the different schedule scenarios that we might be looking at. Next slide. Design phase, we have 3 major submissions to the MSBA. Each of those 3 submissions, we're going to go through the same exact process that we did for schematic design. So estimates that will be produced by Perkins. There'll be an estimate reconciliation meeting with the 2 independent estimators, Perkins and PMA. Building committee will review the estimates and the value management list that comes out of that exercise at that particular design phase. Make a motion, vote approval on the final design package, and then it gets submitted to the MSBA. We do that 3 times, once on April 27th, next on August 14th, and then finally on November 6th.
April 17th, right?
Yep.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Yep, that's the submission date to the MSBA. MSBA has 3 weeks to review and provide comments, and then we have 2 weeks to respond to their comments. Pretty straightforward. The 100% design submission goes to the MSBA as a record submission only. We don't get comments on that one. Next slide. You might have to zoom in here.
The other word slide.
So we're we're halfway down now.
It's all
Yep.
in your calendar.
So between now and our next building committee meeting, planning committee meeting on March 18th, The busiest day is going to be Tuesday, February 25th, where we have integrated security, landscape and site, landscape play and playground meetings. They're in everybody's calendar who's signed up for those groups. As a design review team for the town of Easton on February 27th, and then we have regulatory meetings that are in the process of being scheduled.
So one note about the design review meeting, Andrea felt that we have met with almost everybody we need to meet with as far as the project, so most of the things. So it's really going to be a much smaller meeting. It's not going to be with the entire design review committee, because she felt like they've all seen it already for the most part. She called around and they all were very aware of it.
Okay.
So
That's Andrea Langhauser.
This is the one at the town hall.
Yeah, remind me,
that's the town hall one that's
meeting, right?
in preparation for the submission for planning.
Okay.
All right, so that takes us to our DD estimate period and the planning committee meeting on March 18th. After that, we go into our estimating cycle. We have a tentative meeting in for April 8th. That meeting is only if the estimates come back and they require some more attention, then we'll be able to give it on April 15th. Hopefully that's not the case, but we have the placeholder in there just in case. Any questions on work plan schedule over the next month or two? Okay, I'm going to jump to the next slide, please. So project cash flow, we are trending pretty much where we thought we would be. We don't have a ton of data yet, but you can see the red bars on the bottom left are the monthly actuals. The red line is the cumulative cost to date. The blue line is the total project cost forecast, sorry. Gray line is the district share. Green line is the MSBA reimbursement projection.
Probably have another propay reimbursement going
That's
in
what I
this
was
week.
gonna say, we
Probably this week.
for this phase, since we've entered, since we've left.
DD.
Right?
Yep.
We've done one
Yep.
propay, right?
Right, then the top two numbers there, you see the build to date of $1.19 million and MSBA reimbursement estimate is $630,000 on that. There's submission, review, approval time, and checks and invoices flying back and forth in the mail, but what we do is we look at the total spent to date and we project what is eligible by the MSBA. Right,
And
any-
so we've moved this all over to in terms of monitoring cash flow. Okay.
All right. Any questions on cash flow, budget, anything of that nature? All right. So community outreach, we did have an abutters meeting last week, right?
Yep.
Very well attended. I would say the focus of that meeting was on traffic.
Mm-hmm.
In construction.
Traffic.
Yep.
Yep.
Construction activities.
logistics.
Concerns during construction.
Yep.
Yep. So excellent feedback received. It's all been relayed at this point to the sub-consultants that are working in the various disciplines. Hopefully we're able to address some of the concerns that folks had as they headed into that meeting. All consultants were on hand from site, landscape, traffic. It was
So-
well attended. So.
I think my request would be, as a planning committee, at some point when the consultants have had a chance to kind of go through all of the concerns and issues that were raised, if we could get some kind of, presentation, a couple of slides, just these were the major issues that were addressed. These are the plans that we have developed to start to, resolve or, comment or follow up. And I would imagine as things move forward, I don't know how you've left it with the abutters, but particularly as we move more towards construction, we will need to probably do some more follow-up and outreach, I would think.
Yep.
Is there
Agreed.
another meeting planned, or like what's the timeline?
There wasn't.
Okay.
No.
No.
I would say that the major thing we would probably want to figure out and relay is the actual construction.
Right.
Because that was really, the traffic, I think, was answered fairly well. There's a stop sign issue that Vino will look into and comment on, and then and then how that road actually works. But again, that's
Yeah.
outside of what, we would give you a recommendation. That's all, that's what we would do.
Can you talk about the concern that residents have having to do with that Needham article and what you recommended and what might be in
Mhm.
the steps? I think that's important for people.
Yeah, that's right. So there was an article in the Boston Globe, you guys can interject if you wish, about a project in Needham that I guess I don't know what they did, and I think that you guys found out they didn't have to do very much to the soil, except they probably used oversized equipment to compact the soil and get it ready for construction. The building is very, very close to its neighbors, closer than this building is. Like, some of those neighbors are really 40, 50 feet from it. I mean, very, very close. So it's not altogether surprising that there would have been complaints during construction about it being that close. One of the things they did not do is have any videotaping of any of the interiors of these houses done before the work began, which is pretty standard that a GC coming on board would be interested and want to do that just to protect themselves.
Clever idea ever. I didn't realize it was standard.
Yeah, it is. Happens all the time. Yeah.
Still clever.
I still said it.
Yeah, you did.
So that usually happens, and in this case, for some reason, which I couldn't tell you, a whole bunch of professionals got in a room and no one said those words. So the GC, the architect, everybody was like, just started the construction, and there was a guy in his pool 30 feet away, and everyone was like, it'll be fine. So I think that my suggestion is for the project is to have a specification section for videotaping and ask the contractor to arrange with all the homeowners in the immediate area around on the neighboring properties to videotape the exterior and videotape the inside and outside, so that to protect them and to protect you and the general contractor from these potential. And I can tell you that my experience has been that building construction projects usually don't damage things, but when this happens, it's usually something that a homeowner says, well, you did damage it. So a lot of the times it's water is one of the things that happens, is a drainage pattern change from your construction changes the drainage, and somehow suddenly there's water where there wasn't water before. Very difficult to prove if there wasn't water before. Cracking is also pretty common, like cracks in your finishes of drywall in the house. So it's good practice to do it. I think we should do it. We should probably reach out to the homeowners as well. And I said this at that meeting, but also tell them again that if they don't want the GC to do it, that we strongly suggest that they do it themselves, and they have a record of what it looked like before the first truck rolled in here.
So the record is to help them with a.
The record is actually in this case, it's the contractor.
Contractor would be responsible?
In this case, they're contracting not taking responsibility
Because they didn't have any, so the homeowner,
for the same reason.
Yep.
Nor is anyone's insurance.
nor does anybody's insurance want to deal with it. So everyone's insurance is saying that a building construction project is not an active nature. It's not an active guy. So that damage is not, that's their damage, and the contractor's saying, I don't know if your house was damaged before you started. How do I know?
It was pretty
So-
obvious from that article.
I think you can look at the picture of the overhead and you can kind of tell.
Overnight.
Yeah,
It was like-
you can kind of tell that but that was the flaw in that process, is nobody had any record of any of it. So I think we need to make sure everybody has a record.
That is something they always will with experience.
And that's not going to end. I mean, that'll go on. They'll keep, going after each other.
Maybe even at the next meeting, if we could get kind of a bit of an update. What were the major issues that were raised? Because I know I don't want to hear it tonight. I know there were issues around landscaping and what's the site
Yeah,
gonna look like.
yeah.
Just if we could get an
Yep.
update.
Can I ask a question? When they do take the video of the interior of the home,
Mhm.
do they give the homeowner a copy?
Sure.
Is that- okay.
Sure, we can ask for that. I mean, I would imagine they definitely would. They want you to view it, and they'd want you to say yes to it.
And since it, I think one of the closest
Mhm.
footage
Yep.
to where the construction is going to, the deconstruction is going to take the
deconstruction, yeah.
and the reconstruction of the new field.
Mm-hmm.
That would be part, that was basically our concern, and we know where the school was because we live so close.
Yep.
Now we know where the school is and where it can be removed,
Mhm.
and the new field's going. Now, the water issue, our concern is, what is the elevation in comparison to what the elevation is now of these fields? Because right now, we're below elevation of the school, the current school.
Yep.
And if the fields are maintained at that elevation, we're below
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, they're not going to go down.
No, so the fields will be elevated to us.
The elevation here is going to basically say the elevation it is now. So if it's above you now, it'll be above you then.
Okay.
It's not. We're not going to remove soil from the site and truck it off.
So when they do the test, I noticed in the presentation that Walter sent out that the water will continue to flow towards Spooner Street
Mhm.
from some point where there's a higher elevation than the land.
Yeah, there's a holding tank underground.
And, right, there is one now,
Mhm.
there's one on the corner closer to the back of the school. So will all of that be reworked, or will that be just stay the way?
Everything on the site is everything in the boundary of the site is pretty much going to be redone, but our water is going to be held. So there'll be a tank that holds it and slows it down from.
So it can only release so much,
Right. It won't just be like a wild flow of water. Like we're going to capture it and then release it at a slower rate. And there's a tank over on that side of the site to grab that edge.
In the past, what we had to do was when the street, when they came and redid the side street, Basin Street, which goes behind the
Yep.
school, when they redid it, they elevated it because they didn't grade it when they did the street, they just added to the pavement.
Mhm.
So it went up maybe about an inch and a half altogether, and we had to, at our own expense, put a berm in around that driveway, between that driveway, and in front of my driveway, because I had an underground garage. And that's how we
Mhm.
made sure that the water didn't come into our, so we took that action. I don't want to have to make it even higher.
Yep. So I would suggest that you definitely videotape that exterior of around that area and in a rain event, so that you have a record, or we all have a record, everybody does, of what it looks like during a rain event. Because it's very, very difficult after the fact to tell us that something's different, or there's more water in my garage, there's more, which we'd rather not have that happen. So.
How are you going to determine the limits of the videotape? Like how far are we going to go?
Usually you do the adjoining property. So you're going to do all the houses that everybody bounding the site. So you usually don't go like multiple, because we're not doing any kind of blasting or ramdaggering a pier or any of that ground improvement. So it's pretty straightforward. So it's a matter of like whatever we'll keep their machines to the minimum, and then I don't see that there's going to be anything here that's going to transmit the block. It's really just it's really just a vibration. It's for us. It's all the houses. I haven't seen anyone go beyond one house in.
Yeah.
Unless there's like some real soil improvement issue.
What we found on the Needham school is they were using very, very large equipment. There's a vibratory roller that seems
Yeah,
to have been
it's
blamed.
huge.
I imagine they had a 16-ton. We can carry in the specs here that they cannot bring a 16-ton out on site. They have to do everything with an 8-ton. So we'll cut down the size of their equipment, which will be a.
I asked this question at that meeting, but I wanted to clarify. We just did a septic system.
Mhm.
And all that digging and so forth. I hate to see it, it's perfect now, the town approved it and all that. But, we had people that designed it and qualified to re-examine it prior to. I just want to have protection that doesn't happen with the septic system.
I've never heard of anything happening to a septic system from a project.
No, not
construction.
in my experience.
I mean, usually, even during construction, the site will be bounded by hay bales and other kinds of materials to keep any sediment or anything from leaving the site. So it's actually going to be, you're going to get less off this site when it's under construction than you do now. So you should be fine. But obviously, there's no guarantees in life, but it should be fine.
folks know is that at a quick level, the website's updated, more or less. We've taken, Patrick and I took off all kind of, a lot of stuff on the cover page that didn't need to be there. We archived some stuff, moved some stuff to back pages, and now, under design topics, what we tried to make sure is that there were, at like the May 1919 design and like the July 1919 design, then what we submitted for schematic, and then the last iteration. So what we'll do is every time we approve new designs, once you get me this updated presentation, I just pull the design and throw it up with a date. So I know that you had said last time that people had wondered about being able to see designs. So after we approve things at this meeting and I get the update, I'll be putting it up on the website.
That's great.
Okay. So, the facts, frequently asked questions are still there. I'm not adding, I have no plans to add to anything at this point, so.
And I think the other piece on the abutters, it was noted that if they have any questions, they can submit on the website.
That's what we told them to do, yep.
It'll be directed to the
I
engineer.
I still watch. I go on and, not every day, but.
Same one.
No, same one.
So I can submit a question.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Absolutely. Or, I think at this point, you probably have my direct email and do it. Go right ahead.
I copy you on every question.
That's fine. Go, I'm fine.
Well, she's the one that answers the website questions, so
Oh,
she's
yeah.
getting it twice.
I don't think she's answered some of the questions I answered, because I
No.
don't think, Jane, you want to answer.
No, but I saw them. I did see them. And I'm assuming most of them were addressed at,
Well, I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but Michael did.
okay.
And when I reviewed the presentation, which I thought was great, that was sent out by Walter, I saw that some of my the questions were answered on the presentation. I just had smaller questions on the presentation. Great to say that, but I think
Follow up. Certainly follow up. Great. Thank you. New business.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that's good.
I do.
Uh-oh.
It's a sad new business. Wastewater treatment plant.
Spit it
So,
out, like,
yeah, you want what do you want, the bad news or the bad news?
Yeah.
Bad news?
All of that news.
Okay, so the upgrade,
This is to follow up from what we started to discuss last.
right, so the upgrade budget, this is, the wag at the budget is $550,000 to get the wastewater treatment
Come out
plant.
of design contingency?
Uh-huh.
How much is in design contingency?
8 million?
Yeah, it's.
It's a lot,
At this
but-
point, it's gonna be 10 to 12% of the estimated.
But this
construction
is still a significant bite out of this. Whether it's $8 million, that $8 million is supposed to be accounted for in what we're drawing, not new stuff. So this is a new thing we need to absorb.
And this will do what? Well, 550, what
Well,
is it?
there's a whole list of things that it will do.
Okay.
It's going to leave you in a better place at the end of the
It will
day.
leave you in a better place at the end of the day, definitely.
Slide that goes over.
So the big numbers, the big things, are
No slide.
no, I don't. I got this stuff today. I told him I needed info and I needed some to know what this was going to be. So the first thing is to install larger flow equalization tank. And I told him to give me 2 sentences as to what that means, and he gave me 2 paragraphs. So that's a thing we need. I mean, I can send this out for everybody so you can all read it because it's a lot of stuff. But in a nutshell, they're saying that the existing one has a capacity of 20,000 gallons, but only has an effective of 15,500. It's overwhelmed during high flow afternoons now, which causes it to force flow to the wastewater treatment plant. A larger FET will have an effective capacity of 22 to 24,000. So they're saying we need this. Reconstruct and enlarge the tertiary sand filter. The existing filter has had problems keeping up with the existing flow, causing alarms. The filter has been recently repaired, but still experiences capacity problems. The reconfigured filter could double the flow rate through the filter. Additionally, the filter could be reconfigured and submerged gentrification filter, which could replace the see he leaves a bunch of whole terms here. Replace something we need, or it could be used to provide supplemental denitrification.
This is coming from, remind me.
Stantec. And then install a new final effluent pump chamber. And this is very similar to the enlarged flow equalization tank, same kind of thing.
So I think,
And there's a bunch of miscellaneous things with the building.
word my question a different way. Like, what's the bottom line? Right now, it has this capacity and does this, and after this, it will have this capacity and do this.
Right now, I think it would say it doesn't function as well as it should. I think for the whole place.
As well as it's designed.
Function ever as well as it should.
So-
It's designed for a certain flow of 36,000 gallons,
Yep.
down to 24,000 gallons. We built part of the RO school on one of the leach fields. But it's been under an ACO previously for years because of issues which you wouldn't really anticipate on a new plant. You know, it's 22 years old now, but when it was under an ACO, it was only 10 or 12 years old.
What's an ACO, sorry?
Administrative consent order for it being out of compliance. So
Mhm.
it's had troubles all along, so this is not a surprise
Mhm.
to me at all.
But what will this will,
So it needs upgrades to make the plant viable. So plant struggles now to keep up with a lower flow that was originally designed for. So to now add additional flow for the new school.
This will put
the large
us
school.
over capacity, like what?
You'll be at the capacity. Will be at
That's the
full
next
capacity.
conversation.
Efficiently at
That's water
capacity.
And force main, we have that in there too.
It's got deficiencies that need.
We
to be
were going
addressed.
all the way back to
And if
it,
this school didn't
not
happen,
touching
these would
it.
have to be addressed.
Now we have to touch it
Anyway,
and all the way back to it.
Correct. But that was in the design.
I always.
The other things are in the design.
Make those upgrades as needed.
I will.
You see this as that.
Silver
Yeah,
lining.
I've always seen that as a chance to, fix that plan.
So the $550,000 will allow us to design what we need to design to do this and to then
No, that allows you to build
the 550.
what we need to, yep.
So this won't cut into the construction contingency at all?
No, we're not there yet, but it's going to chew into the design contingency, and there's a design cost here, which is $200,000 on top of that, which is $750,000 cost.
To design.
For them to design it and do the assessment.
Sure, you put it in two parts, you could just hit
I know.
it at
I was like, bad news, and bad news. But silver linings. So in the contract, within the drawings now, we have the septic field increase, and we have the force main all the way back to the wastewater treatment plant, which we need. So that is not stuff we have to buy again. We already have that. And then the other silver lining is the plant, albeit not working as well as it should, is actually in better shape than they thought it would be. So they kind of felt that this expenditure is going to last another 20 years.
But still.
And then, with regular maintenance, other than they felt originally coming into the room that you're going to do this and it's going to last you 10 years and you're going to replace it. So they felt there actually is some longevity in it, that you could do this and get some time, buy yourself some time. That's kind of where 15 or 20 years is where they kind of felt we could get out of it.
It's
which
already.
which puts it right at the edge of its end of what it would have been its long-term lifespan anyway. But this kind of rejuvenates it long enough that they actually felt it was in putting all aside the other issues, that it was in better shape than they had anticipated.
And is the 200,000, is that just for design or is that for construction?
Construction. Oh, it's construction phase, design services,
Okay.
and the hydrological assessment phase, that's actually a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
$70,000 right there.
The design and pricing contingency at SD was $5.7 million. We carried 10%.
I'm trying to find that budget.
So we'll consider that whole thing?
Well, we're supposed to.
Yeah.
We're supposed to take that 5.7 million is supposed to roll itself into the construction budget. So by the time we get to bid day, or by the time we put the drawings out on the street at 100%, that's gone. That's become part of the drawings.
But we're down to
Now we're at 5, yeah. I mean, it's gonna be, the estimate's gonna be interesting because we have to, that's a large unanticipated hit
Right.
before we've even really
I mean, typically.
done the estimate at all,
So
so
going from SD to DD, we would drop the contingency to 10% to 8%.
maybe 8.
estimates. The problem is the hit that we're talking about is about half of that drop. So that drop gets
Doesn't give us any
absorbed
flexibility.
in the typical design evolution. So
Mhm.
we may have an uphill battle at the DD estimate phase with the value management.
Mhm.
It's not insurmountable, but it's an uphill battle. We don't know for sure until we actually get those numbers back.
Mhm. That's right. So we're gonna plug that in to the, we're gonna plug
On that note, then I know.
That's some good news.
next meeting. We'll,
Yes, we can.
we'll plug that in as a, to the estimate so that we have it covered now, so that we know where we know at least what we gotta do. The intent is to make sure that when we open the building, we don't none of us end up in a position where we can't
In
use
5
it,
years,
or
you're
there's a
doing this
2 or
work.
3 years after you open it, you have a crisis.
And so I'm just curious, how does, when now we submit this and the MSBA is looking at this and seeing that something is now included
Mhm.
that we really hadn't anticipated? Look back.
Well, we're in the triple bucket of, it's ineligible anyway,
Mhm.
we're above the square foot cost already.
And it's outside, yep.
The 333 per square foot and the 8% site cap are already in
Mhm.
place. So this design and pricing contingency that we'd be funding this through is already outside of those caps.
Yeah.
So it just stays ineligible. It
So
shouldn't.
it's an ineligible cost, they
Mhm.
still look at it.
Whether it was
as
in
an-
before or,
It's just gone up.
Yep. The one item that would be impacted is the design fee piece of it. So if we have $200,000 in design, when we calculate the anticipated grant amount, it assumes that that's eligible because it's technically eligible scope. When we use it for this purpose, they're going to exclude it
They will,
Yeah.
because it wasn't originally inside the,
because it's
Because it's
site
site work.
and septic.
Site.
Yeah.
so what does that do to, because it was in the contingency, we're still okay bottom line, right?
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
kind of where I'm headed.
Yep.
Yep.
and we may, and what Chad was saying was we may need to do a value management exercise when we get the estimates.
Yep.
To balance the difference in that.
We are seeing bids come in favorably on other projects, so we had talked about that one project that came in much higher than expected. I know several projects very similar to this have come in since then with lower numbers, so we're seeing about 10% low on those projects. So the estimators, when they go into the DD round of estimating, are gonna have that updated market data, and we may see some benefit from that market data.
Mhm.
Hopefully we do, because if that's carrying true across all their projects, then that may be the piece that we're looking for to absorb this impact.
Mhm.
All right.
I don't have any other news.
You didn't say the good news?
No.
So next meeting is already on the,
March
Calendar.
18th, yeah.
and I would imagine at that point you will be doing the same thing, which is primarily the summary of the focus, what's happened with those focus groups since. Can we make sure that we have, I know you didn't have them this evening, but can we have make sure we have site plans?
Yep.
For that meeting that we can look at? Because I know that the playground and the outside.
Yeah, they're gonna have that, because they're gonna have those focus group meetings, so, yeah.
Right, those happen.
Yeah,
on-
those will
on
definitely
all
be in there.
days. Okay.
That'll be the bulk of it.
And then if there's anything else that we need to be approving or.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? So on this wastewater treatment plant, so the Stantec, are they the ones that put it together, they kind of design the improvements and then they go out to bid, or you go out to bid? How's that
That's a
work?
good question. We have to get further into this. He's gonna give us a report, and we'll have to decide what's gonna get done and how, because there's a $200,000 of miscellaneous there too, of things that should be done to it that are outside the fixing it for, there's an HVAC issue, there's doors, no, inside that. So,
Stuff that may
Stuff
not.
stuff that we-
200 miscellaneous is part of the 550?
yes.
Thank you.
So there's a chunk of that number that we might, talk about handling differently or doing something else with. And then I think there's a conversation about how this gets bid. Like, do we include it or do we have a separate project that just does that thing? And my inclination is that we just do that thing with someone who does that kind of work, and we don't include this into a general contract because we're going to pay a charge on top of that, and they're going to get, distracted by this little project that's sitting over there, and there'll be questions and all kinds of things going on, and they'll lose sight of the main goal, which is building an actual building for you.
The general contractors that will be interested in the school project will
Are
have
not the
zero
same.
experience on
Yeah,
that wastewater.
they will not be interested in this.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm thinking it's best for us to send it out as its own project.
And you can still do that within, you can bid out separately pieces
Mm-hmm.
of a project like that. 'Cause this is
Within the
still
budget, yes.
Within our budget,
Within the
yeah.
budget,
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, they would. That's the financially more. That's the better way to do it. So I think they would agree. They may ask a question, and then we would answer it that way. And that I think they're a bottom line organization. So if they think if we tell them it's going to save money, they're going to be interested.
So basically, Stantec does the design, you go out to bid, or somebody goes out to bid, you get the pricing, and you bring it back to this committee. and
Yeah.
say,
And go ahead and build it. It's like its own little separate project. I mean, I would almost there's a whole bunch of different ways we can do it. I mean, we could run Stantec through me. We could hire Stantec separately. I mean, if you part of this project, you probably have to go through me to do it. We can't just hire another design firm and have them stamp drawings. We have to do it through us.
Yep.
But I would have them be the prime and have them do, they know how to do it, and they do these all over the place. So, and put together a set of documents and bid it, and that also allows it to be off the schedule that we're on. Like we could say, right after DCD starts, that phase starts, we could say, do that job, and they could go and do that work in the summer, and get that done so that's ready to go, and then you have that functioning the way you want it to for more than a year before the building's built. So you could work whatever bugs out, or and then that's just done, and it's not linked to there's not that extra chaos going on here either with another project going on site. So.
He said that the septic system on the wastewater treatment plant that's causing this issue, so now it always has been problematic, and we've heard that for years. There's exactly that subcontract from the contractor.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We want to make sure that that's not something that is.
I think we were.
That's really been problematic from almost.
Yeah, that was through a general contractor, I believe. That's what I was told. Is it actually was bought as part of the main job, like a sub piece, and then that was just kind of shuttled off to. And I think someone knew who the civil engineer was. It was Semiotis, so they were going to contact them and see if they could dig up any info on it. Because the other thing it's missing is any real reliable as-built information for it. So no one really knows where everything goes, so the directions of the pipes, so there's a lot of guesswork there on that to kind of figure out what's happening. So it would be good to try to find that information. We'll keep digging on it and see what more we can get. That was a good meeting with Stantec that day. They fully understand what needs to happen. They get it, and it's just a matter of trying to put this thing together to minimize the cost and minimize the exposure. Because if you don't have as-builts for it, there's exposure there. We don't really know.
Is the plant offline while this work is being done?
Yeah,
You'll have to be there offline, so it'll have to be.
that's why it has to be a summer. Yeah,
Be phased appropriately.
yeah, has to be. Yep.
Does that mean building shut down or is there storage
I
capacity?
think that means the buildings are shut down. You can't.
Well, no,
mean,
there's ways around.
yeah,
it.
you can.
You can tight tank it. Flows
Yeah.
are fairly minimal.
Yeah, yeah,
But
you
also
could do that.
the
Sure,
whole
as long as you.
process is
Adjourn? Anybody else to adjourn?
Anything else? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I don't think it's-
So,